Good evening, students. Okay, good evening, Arohi, Karan, Ashi, Rashi, Shashwat. So today we will start chapter equilibrium. Okay, and I hope you all are filled up with energy. You will respond very quickly. Yastika, good evening. Okay, so let's start. Now, before I start, if there is any question related to previous one, you can let me know. Or if you want to revise any specific chapter, I can plan one or two classes on that also. Okay. Rashi, basically what you are doing, your question, what you sent on WhatsApp, you are doing just reverse. You have been asked the question, just see the reaction. What is on the left hand side, what is on the right hand side. You are doing just opposite of that. You are keeping the left hand side on right side and right side on left side. Okay, so that is the mistake. Yes, Mehak and Shivangi, redox, yes, we can do. Okay. So let me know how many of you want a revision of redox. Just say yes, 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 those who want a revision of redox. Okay. So obviously next class I'll do on redox section. Okay. Okay, good. So so many yes. Okay, fine. Next class we will do a revision of redox. Thermodynamics, yes, revision will continue, Ashi. Okay. We have finished thermodynamics. We have done one practice session. So that was the practice session, not the revision. In revision, we will do different question of the same time. So to start with, first we need to understand what is equilibrium. Okay. In chemistry, what is equilibrium? In simple words, when rate of forward reaction becomes equal to rate of backward reaction. Two specific keywords we are talking about, forward and backward. It means if I get A and B compounds reacted and they produce C and D. Sometimes it is possible that C and D can also react. And when they react, they produce back A and B. So first we need to understand equilibrium reactions will be those reactions in which reaction is possible in both ways, forward as well as backward. Otherwise, equilibrium cannot be achieved because reaction will be only in one direction. Okay. So here we are talking about that rate of forward reaction when it is equal to rate of backward reaction. When C and D react, then we say this is a condition of equilibrium. Now, it does not mean that reaction has stopped. Only the concentrations of these compounds will remain constant. So one very good example is in a real scenario, you know that Haber's process, we have when nitrogen and hydrogen combine, they produce ammonia. We have talked about it earlier. Now, this process is actually reversible. Means it can happen in forward direction as well as in reverse direction. So the reactions which are reversible means which can happen in forward as well as backward directions are represented by sign this one. So when we mix nitrogen and hydrogen, they will produce ammonia, but ammonia gets also dissociated into nitrogen and hydrogen. Now by equilibrium, I mean that the rate of forward reaction will be equal to, here in this case, to reverse reaction or backward reaction. It means if at any point of time it is equilibrium and I have X moles of nitrogen, Y moles of hydrogen, and Z moles of ammonia, these concentrations will remain constant. Means nitrogen will remain X moles, hydrogen Y moles, and ammonia Z moles, Z moles. Okay. Why this is important to understand? Because it does not mean that reaction has stopped. It's still nitrogen and hydrogen are reacting to produce ammonia, and ammonia is getting dissociated back into hydrogen and nitrogen. So everything is happening there. Nothing has stopped. Only the rates are equal. You can understand it in a way. Yes, just before I proceed, Ashi, yes. Today my voice might not be clear because I am on a low speed network today. Okay, so bear with me. From tomorrow it will be okay. But today specifically there was some problem in the main network. So I have switched to a slower network. Okay, so mean somewhere in between my voice will be fluctuating. Okay, it will be breaking, but today I can't do anything. From tomorrow onwards it will be. Okay. So, and this is due to something, some not problem in the network, rather problem in some software in my laptop that is creating a loop between my speaker and microphone, and that is causing the problem. Yes, Vanda, that's what I'm saying, that today I'll provide the link of this class, okay, afterwards, but my voice might be breaking. Okay, it will be fixed tomorrow, not today. So those who are not able to listen to me clearly, okay. So if someone is not able to listen to me, this should be clear now that it will be fixed tomorrow, not today. Now, how you can understand? Just a second, okay? I'm muting myself just for 30 seconds. Okay, so so to start now, okay, Shivangi, that's fine. Anyway, you can have the link of the recorded class afterwards. Okay, if you have to go, that's fine. If it is unavoidable, okay, fine. So how we can understand that the reaction is happening and still the concentrations are constant. Suppose uh, you have Anish and Divya, they are pushing one another. Okay, my drawing is horrible. Okay, so bear with me. And they are pushing themselves with equal force. F. Now, it does not mean that they are not doing anything. They are doing. Okay, both are pushing one another, but because forces are equal in both directions, that's why they are stationary. They are not able to push anyone. So it looks that they are stationary, but actually they are doing something. The same thing is happening here in equilibrium. That the reaction is happening, but for us it looks like that nothing is happening because the concentrations are constant. Now, because something is happening and still the concentration is constant, we say it is equilibrium, but we say it is dynamic equilibrium. Why we say it is dynamic equilibrium? Because something is happening there. It is not static, it is dynamic equilibrium. So if you are asked the question, why do we call this equilibrium or chemical equilibrium as dynamic equilibrium? You will say because the reaction in forward and backward direction, both reactions are taking place, but the rate of these reactions is same. That's why the concentrations of all reactants and products are constant. That's why we call it dynamic equilibrium. Equilibrium can be established both, okay, for physical as well as chemical processes. As I said, the example I gave, that if we are pushing one another, obviously there is no chemical reaction happening. That is an example of physical equilibrium. And chemical equilibrium means the reactions forward and backward are same. Okay, sorry, the rate of the reactions are same. Rates of the forward and reverse. So reverse or backward, same thing, become equal. Now, very important concept of equilibrium constant. Equilibrium constant is represented by Kc and is expressed as the concentration of products divided by reactants, each term raised to the stoichiometric coefficient. I'll repeat it and then I'll explain. Equilibrium constant, understand, is expressed as the concentration of products divided by reactant, means products divided by reactants. This is written here, products divided by reactants, but not just product, concentration of product. And the norm is that concentration is represented as when we place them between square brackets. So whenever you say or you see, sorry, something written as A or something written as, for example, acetic acid and square brackets, or something written as HCl. It means we are talking about concentration of HCl, concentration of acetic acid, concentration of A. Now tell me, What is the most common unit of concentration we have studied? Very good answer, very quick answer. My question is, what is the most common unit of concentration we have studied? Yes, Preeta, correct. Devansh, you are close. Most common, most common. Yes, Devansh, Arohi, correct. Liter is not unit of concentration. Liter is unit of volume. Yes, Arshia, good. So the most common unit of concentration we have studied is molarity. Molarity is the unit of concentration. Obviously, we talked about many other molality and density, okay, mole fraction, percentage, mass percentage also. But the most common is the molarity. So the concentration, okay, now tell me, am I audible now? Everyone, can you hear me? Okay, good, good. Okay, so it should be fine now. Good. Okay, so we are talking about the equilibrium constant, and we said that equilibrium constant is something concentration of products divided by concentration of reactants, but not this one only. Okay? And I said that whenever you see anything in the square brackets, it means that is concentration. Okay, so going forward, you will remember that if any product is written inside square brackets, it means we are talking about the concentration of that one. So in this chapter, for example, if it is given that concentration of HCl is 3m. Okay, so there was some momentary network loss. It should be correct now. So if I write in square brackets HCl is equal to 3m, it means I am trying to say that concentration of HCl is 3 moles per liter. Means in 1 liter, I have 3 moles of HCl. So this is how I will write it. Concentration of HCl is 3 m. Now I move to the again definition of the equilibrium constant. Equilibrium constant is the concentration of products. Because I am talking about concentration, I'll place the products in square brackets divided by concentration of reactants. Now the most important part, each term raised to the stoichiometric coefficient. Stoichiometric coefficient, nothing but molar coefficient. So whenever this buzzword comes in stoichiometric, it is nothing but only the molar ratio. So if it is written as, for example, N2 plus 3H2 gives you 2NH3. It means here 1, here 3, here 2. These are stoichiometric coefficients. Okay. So this definition says that if I write for this one, the equilibrium constant is K. C represents in terms of concentrations. C just represents that I am talking about in terms of concentrations, because going forward we will be talking about same thing, equilibrium constant, in terms of pressures. So products concentration divided by reactants concentration raised to their stoichiometric coefficient. Now what are the products will be on the numerator side. So concentration of ammonia. In the denominator, I will have concentration of nitrogen and concentration of hydrogen. Now I come to the next part, raised to their stoichiometric coefficient. Now stoichiometric coefficient for ammonia is 2. So I'll have concentration of ammonia raised to the power 2, square of that. For nitrogen, I have a stoichiometric coefficient as 1. It means it will not have any power because power 1 is not shown. Hydrogen has a stoichiometric coefficient as 3. It means concentration of hydrogen Q. So for this reaction, if you are asked what is the equilibrium constant, you will write like this. Is it clear how to write the equilibrium constant for a reaction? Just confirm in the chat box. Good. Good. So in general, if I'm talking about in general, for a reaction that A plus B gives you C plus D, and their stoichiometric coefficients are small a, small b, small c, small d, equilibrium constant will be given by product concentration raised to their stoichiometric coefficient divided by reactant concentrations raised to their stoichiometric coefficient. Because C, D, A, B, capital C, capital D, capital A, capital B have been written inside the square brackets, means these are the concentrations. So here I mean that concentration of C raised to its stoichiometric coefficient. Then concentration of D, product, raised to its stoichiometric coefficient, small d. Then concentration of A raised to stoichiometric coefficient and concentration of B raised to its stoichiometric coefficient. Product divided by rate. Equilibrium constant, whatever we have discussed, Kc, has constant value at a fixed temperature, and at this stage all the macroscopic properties such as concentration, pressure, etc. become constant. Macroscopic means at larger level, okay, not microscopic means not inside the reaction. Reaction is still happening, that is not constant. But outside, from outside, we will see that concentration will be constant, pressure will be constant. The condition is that temperature must be constant. And it is very important. You will see that why I am emphasizing it. Later, we will see that equilibrium constant will change its value only if we change the temperature. Okay. If we will change the concentration, if we will change the pressure, equilibrium constant initially will change, but will attain the same initial value, will adjust itself. But if you change the temperature of the reaction, the value of equilibrium constant will change. So understand what I am saying. In detail, I'll discuss it later on, but at this stage, why I am saying at fixed temperature it is constant. For example, I am conducting the reaction at 700 K score. Then there will be some equilibrium constant. But suppose I do this same reaction at 800 K. Then the equilibrium constant will change and it will be K. It will not be same. But suppose if I am changing the pressure, I'm not changing the temperature. I change pressure, then it will remain same. If I change concentration of any, concentration of any means concentration of nitrogen, hydrogen, ammonia, it will remain same. K1 will not change. The concentrations will adjust in such a way that the value of equilibrium constant will remain same. Now we move towards pressure. As I said, why I had written it as Kc, because that was in terms of concentration. But there is equilibrium constant represented in terms of pressure also, partial pressures. In a similar fashion. Exactly, Preeta, very good. Yes, we will be talking about the Le Chatelier's principle. It is due to the Le Chatelier's principle. Okay. So similar to the Kc equilibrium constant in terms of concentrations, there can be equilibrium constant in terms of partial pressures also. Remember, both are constants, but both are not equal. I am not saying Kc is equal to Kp. I am not saying that. What I am saying that as we can represent equilibrium constant in terms of concentration, in terms of pressure also we can represent. Although both will be constant values, but both will be different values. So if I say Kc for a reaction is this much, Kp may or may not be same. I'll tell you when they may be same or when they will not be same later on. So in terms of pressure, it will be simply same, but instead of concentrations, we will use their partial pressure. Moreover, this will be applicable for gases, because liquids and solids do not have partial pressures. So Kp will have limited applications. Kc is applicable everywhere. Definition is similar. The equilibrium constant will be equal to partial pressures of the products raised to their stoichiometric coefficient divided by partial pressure of reactants raised to their stoichiometric coefficients. So when you replace concentrations by partial pressures, you get Kp, means equilibrium constant in terms of partial pressures. And there will be a specific constant value for every reaction for Kp and Kc. So it becomes easier for us. Later on, we will be talking about to say whether the reaction has completed or not, whether the reaction is before equilibrium or whether the reaction is ahead of equilibrium or whether the reaction is at equilibrium. The use of Kp and Kc will be to find out whether the reaction has achieved equilibrium or not, whether it is behind equilibrium or whether it is ahead of equilibrium. Now we are going to find out the relationship between Kp and Kc. As I said, these might be equal, and most of the cases they won't be equal, but they might be. Now, if we consider this here, okay, we can represent pressures in terms of concentrations. How? Just see here. So it is the shortcut. Obviously, you won't be able to understand just by looking onto it. So I'm explaining it. We know that PV is equal to NR. And what is concentration? Concentration is molarity, that is moles per liter. So if I rearrange this equation and I write P equals to N by V RT. I have taken V from left hand side to right hand side. Now it is moles per liter. N by V is actually moles per liter. So I can write this as concentration. Instead of writing N by V, I can write it as concentration RT. And concentration, we use square brackets. So instead of partial pressure, if I want to represent it in terms of concentration, I can use this relationship. P is equal to CRT. Now Kp for the reaction Kp was partial pressure of C whole to the power C, partial pressure of D whole to the power D, because D is a stoichiometric coefficient, divided by partial pressure. I'm doing here because I erase that. So I'll write P equals to concentration to RT. Concentration can be of any A, B, C, D. So I have kept that as blank. So at place of PC, I write concentration of C RT whole to the power C. This whole. PC I can write concentration of C into RT. Similarly, PD will be concentration of D RT using this relationship what we have found previously. Whole to the power D divided by PA. PA we can write concentration of A into RT whole to the power A. Similarly, PB I can write concentration of B RT and this whole to the power B. I hope you are clear till here. Okay, good, very good. So if you are clear till here, we know that mathematically now we can write it C to the power C RT C D to the power D RT to the power D. I am using specifically A B to the power M is A to the power M into B to the power M, which we have studied in 7th, 8th grade. Divided by A to the power A, RT to the power A, B to the power B, RT to the power B. If you have any confusion, you can ask. This is simple math. Now all RT terms I can combine. So it will be equal to C to the power C, D to the power D, and then RT to the power C plus D divided by A to the power A, B to the power B, RT to the power A plus B. I am just using the simple maths. A to the power M into A to the power N equals to A to the power M plus N, both in numerator and denominator. Hence, RT to the power C into RT to the power D will be equal to RT to the power C plus D. And similarly, RT to the power A into RT to the power B will be RT to the power A plus B. Now you can take the RT to the power A plus B from denominator to numerator. When you take it to numerator, obviously it will be minus. It will be RT to the power minus whole A plus B. That's what I have written here. This one I will write like C to the power C, D to the power D upon A to the power A, B to the power B, and then I can write RT to the power C plus D minus A plus B. Now C plus D minus A plus B is a familiar term which we have used in thermodynamics chapter, which is delta Ng. Yes, correct. Very good. It is actually delta Ng because we are talking about Kp. Kp is for gases and C plus D is the number of moles of products. C plus D, number of moles of product, minus A plus D. A plus B is number of moles of reactants. And C plus D minus A plus B, this whole will give you delta and G. So it means you can replace C plus D minus A plus B by delta and G, and you can replace this term by KC, because it is KC. KC equal to C to the power C to the power D divided by A to the power A, to the power B. This. So this part you can replace by KC. So once you replace these, you get Kp equals to Kc RT to the power delta N. You should write it delta Ng because it is specifically for gas, where delta Ng is number of moles of gaseous products minus number of moles of gaseous reactants. This is very important, as I explained in thermodynamics also. You will not consider the moles of liquids and solids. You will consider only gaseous. Even if reactants and products have liquids and solids, you will not consider them. This is again very important formula. Kp equals to Kc RT to the power delta, where Kp is equilibrium constant in terms of partial pressures and Kc is equilibrium constant in terms of concentrations. R and T have their usual meanings. R is gas constant and T is the temperature. In Kelvin. Okay. Now, general characteristics of equilibria involving physical processes. Exactly, Shashwat. Yes. So I said that in few cases, Kp and Kc can be same. Those will be same when delta Ng is zero. Means gaseous number of moles of products and gaseous number of moles of reactant are same. In that case, Kp and Kc will be equal. Now, sometimes when you use this particular relationship, and many a times I see that students have done mistake in past, they write Kc is equal to Kp RT to the power times, which is absolutely reverse of that, absolutely wrong. Okay, so to remember that P is first and C is after that. So you can remember it's the equation of Priyanka Chopra. P comes first, C comes after. Okay, P on left hand side, C on right hand side. So the characteristics of equilibrium. Equilibrium is possible only in a closed system. Why? Because if it is not a closed system and gases are produced, reverse reaction will not be there. The gas will escape. First case. If it is thermodynamically changing reaction, for example, exothermic or endothermic reaction, then also heat will escape. Once the heat escapes, the backward reaction will not take place. So equilibrium is possible only in a closed system at a given temperature. Otherwise, the temperature may change depending on exothermic or endothermic reaction. or gas can escape. Very important point, will be used quite a few times to answer many questions. Next point. Both the opposing processes occur at the same time and there is dynamic but stable condition. Means forward and backward reactions are taking place. Both opposing processes means backward and forward reactions are taking place and there is dynamic but stable condition. When equilibrium is attained for a physical process, it is characterized by constant value of one of its parameters at a given temperature. For example, if I say liquid to vapor conversion, then the constant is the partial pressure of H2O. Remember the third point what I am talking about, that any particular parameter becomes constant at equilibrium for physical processes. Any particular parameter will become constant. Okay? For physical processes, any particular parameter becomes constant. So for liquid vapor equilibrium, suppose you have a closed container. You have a closed container. Here you have water and here you have vapors. Initially, if there are no vapors, then what will happen? Then water will start vaporizing. But slowly, pressure will start building up here and pressure will increase. Why pressure will increase? Because more vapor will be produced. But when there are sufficient vapors and sufficient pressure, that pressure will cause the vapors to condense. At high pressure will start condensation of vapors and there will be an equilibrium condition when the rate of condensation will be equal to rate of vaporization. That will be condition of equilibrium. When rate of vaporization will be equal to rate of condensation. Vaporization is a natural phenomenon. Condensation will be due to the pressure being built up. And as I said, equilibrium is achieved only in closed systems. This is closed system, not an open system. In such a case, what becomes constant? Vapor pressure becomes constant. The pressure here becomes constant. Solid liquid equilibrium, the next one, means ice and water. H2O solid means ice. What means melting point is fixed. It can happen only at 0 degrees Celsius, not on any other temperature. So 0 degrees Celsius means melting point is fixed. So any one parameter will be fixed. Solute solution equilibrium means suppose you are dissolving some sugar. Okay. Now it is very important phenomenon here that when you say that you have a solution of sugar, suppose you have a solution of sugar and you have water as solvent and sugar as solute. Suppose this is a saturated solution. Equilibrium will occur when it is saturated solution. Okay. Now what will happen? What is saturated solution? Saturated solution is that at a given temperature, maximum possible amount of solute is dissolved. maximum possible amount of solute is dissolved. You can't dissolve more than that. That is saturated solution. Now, what happens in this case, that it's not that we have dissolved sugar and it is there in the solvent. Rather, there are two processes going on. The first process is that sugar being dissolved in the solution. The second process is from solution, the sugar is being crystallized. You know both the processes. When it gets dissolved, then it converts from solid to very tiny particles which are dissolved in solute. It becomes solution. But opposite process is crystallization. Means sugar coming out of the solution. And normally it will be visible when you have more sugar dissolved in solution than the saturated solution. So if it will be oversaturated solution or supersaturated solution, then sugar will not get dissolved. So both the processes are happening here. Sugar is getting dissolved and sugar is getting crystallized out of the solution, but the rate of both processes is same. And that's what we call the equilibrium. So again, remember, it's not that the dissolution has stopped. No. Dissolution means solute getting dissolved in solution. So the first process is dissolution. Dissolution means solute getting dissolved in solution, in solvent, and you get the solution. The second is solute getting out of the solution, that is crystallization. Both the rates are equal, and that's why you say the solution is in equilibrium. So the second one, solute solution equilibrium. For example, sugar and sugar solution. Concentration of solute in solution is constant at a given temperature. Means you can't dissolve more, and the rate of the forward and reverse reactions are same. That's why the concentration of the solute in the solvent remains same. Now the last one, gas, dry gas to aqueous gas. So gas, again, there can be, in this case also, there can be an equilibrium. And this is something we will see when we talk about the solution of gases and liquids. For example, you have Coke and Pepsi. Basically, Coke, Pepsi, these are the solutions of gas and liquid. Gas is carbon dioxide and liquid is flavored water. Flavored and colored water. Gas is carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is mixed in water and you get Coke or Pepsi or fizz, any fizzy. So there also you have equilibrium of carbon dioxide gas outside the liquid. So suppose you have the Coke or Pepsi. Here you have carbon dioxide which has been there with pressure, okay, pressurized carbon dioxide. Here you have carbon dioxide in water. So there is an equilibrium between carbon dioxide gas, which is outside solution, pressurized, and carbon dioxide aqueous because it is in water. So it does not mean that whatever concentration of carbon dioxide we have in water, that is there, and carbon dioxide which is outside water, that is there. No, the reactions are still taking place, or physical, you can say, reaction. That is carbon dioxide being mixed in the water. So there will be some rate, and carbon dioxide coming out of the water. Both of these rates will be. We are talking about a few examples of physical equilibrium. So here the rate of dissolution of carbon dioxide in water and rate of carbon dioxide coming out of the water is equal. And it's a closed system because we have a cap here. So equilibrium can be built here, or equilibrium can be achieved. The phenomenon is same as I explained as of water and vapors. So here also, due to pressure, the carbon dioxide will be absorbed in the water. But due to evaporation, the carbon dioxide will get out of the water. So at some pressure, when carbon dioxide will get out of the water, again the pressure will start building up. At a certain pressure, the rate of condensation and rate of evaporation will be same. That's what we are talking about here. These two rates will be. Fourth one, the magnitude of such quantities at any stage indicates the extent to which the physical process has proceeded before reaching equilibrium. What do I mean by that? Suppose I am talking about A plus B gives me C plus D. Concentration of A and B or C and D at any point of time will tell me whether I have achieved the equilibrium or not. Okay, to watch what extent the physical process has proceeded, whether I am still more in forward direction, less in reverse direction, or maybe my rate of reaction in forward direction is less, in reverse direction it is more, but at equilibrium it will be same in both the directions. How? Obviously, if we have time, that's something we will talk today, else we will talk in the next. So the equilibrium can be decided whether we have achieved. Why? Because suppose we start mixing A and B, then at that time you don't have C and D. You have only A and B. So initially, very small amount of C and D will be produced because they are zero. But when we have sufficient C and D, reverse reaction will also take place. So initially, forward rate will be very high because you have only reactants. You don't have any products. But in few minutes or in some time, reverse rate will also start increasing. Then after some time, when A and B have been consumed, okay, up to some extent, the rate of forward reaction will start decreasing. But because now we have sufficient C and D, rate of reverse reaction will increase. And at some time they will become equal. That condition will be known as equilibrium. Yes, Shashwat, good. That is known as reaction quotient. About that, if we have time, we will be talking about today. So diagrammatically, we can understand it in this way, that initially the concentration of A and B is maximum. Here, on this axis, we have concentration, and on x-axis, we have time. So initially, we have only A and B reactants. So concentration of reactants is maximum and products concentration is zero, because when we have just started mixing at the beginning of the reaction, we don't have any products. But slowly, products concentration will increase and reactants concentration will decrease. Now don't get confused with this cross point. It has nothing to do with equilibrium. Nothing to do. At any point of time, obviously, they might have same concentration. Okay, maybe concentration of A is equal to concentration of C, but that has no effect on the reaction, because equilibrium constant depends on concentration raised to the stoichiometric coefficient, not just the concentration. So this point is of no significance. Okay? But after that, when the concentration of products is also substantial, both forward and reverse rates will be equal, and the concentration of both products and reactants will be will be constant. So after that, they won't change. That's why you have horizontal line. Concentrations become constant. So at equilibrium, when they achieve equilibrium, at that time, the concentrations become constant, and after that, they remain constant. The system remains in equilibrium because forward rate is equal to the reverse rate. So once the system reaches the equilibrium or achieves equilibrium, after that, if you don't disturb the equilibrium by increasing the pressure or decreasing the pressure or increasing the temperature or increasing or decreasing the concentration of any reactant or product, the equilibrium will not change and the concentrations will remain constant. But if you change any of these factors, how it will impact the equilibrium and how it may not impact the equilibrium, that is something we are going to talk in the next class. Till then, take care. Good night. Bye-bye.